My name is Yeong Kim, and I'm a faculty member in the Human Development Family Sciences program at the University of Texas at Austin. I've been a faculty member for 18 years, and I have experience as professor doing research on immigrant families and adolescent development. And I have published over 170 journal articles and have been editor of both Journal Research on Adolescence and Cultural Diversity and Ethnic Minority Psychology. The first thing I would advise is writing a compelling and action-oriented title that fits the journal is very important. There is a website called JANE, which stands for Journal Author Name Estimator. And typically, if you put in the abstract to whichever article you want to publish, they can suggest journals that would be interested in or have published similar titles. In addition to writing a compelling and action-oriented title that fits the journal, the second important thing in terms of making a good first impression is writing an abstract that demonstrates going beyond the current state of the literature. Typically in the field of social sciences, and my experiences especially with psychology-oriented journals, norm is to write an abstract that's between 120 to 250 words. And that's the first impression the journal editor will have, is not only the title, but also the abstract. So the abstract really needs to convince the editor that the study you're proposing or the study that you've conducted, that you're planning to do, goes beyond what's already been done out there in the literature. And the third thing I would recommend is writing with authors who have published in the journal. The top authors in the field, the editors will know. So if you write with an author who has already published in the field, it's likely to probably get a favorable review by the editor. So again, the three things I recommend is first, writing a compelling and action-oriented title that fits the journal. Second is writing an abstract that demonstrates that you go beyond the current state of the literature. And third is writing with authors who have published in the journal itself. So DES rejected just means the paper was not considered a fit and will not be submitted for peer review. And the editor can sometimes give a reason for why the paper was DES rejected, or they may not, depending on the editor. Or if the paper is not DES rejected, it's going to be assigned to an associate editor for peer review. And in the journal I edit, Journal Research on Adolescence, the DES rejection rate is about 70%, and acceptance rate of the journal is around 17%. The DES rejection rate is going to vary depending on the number of manuscripts the journal will get. And the acceptance rate of about 17%, that rate is pretty similar across many of the top quartile 1 journals, is around 17 or lower acceptance rate. So editors are looking for two things primarily. One is a strong theoretical premise for why you're conducting the study you're conducting. Second is having a very strong research design. So a research design that stands out. For example, in my field, a lot of studies are being done with daily diaries, for example. But most studies that are doing just daily diaries is now not considered as innovative. But if it's coupled with another longitudinal study design along with daily diaries, then that would be considered more of a novel research design. So that is the way to have your paper stand out. So the two things again are having a strong theoretical premise for the study that you want to conduct. And two is having a strong research design so that editors will want to accept your paper for publication. So in most social science journals, it is a pretty long process to get a paper published. In medical journals, it can be as short as 3 months or even a month. But in social science journals, we typically go through 2 or 3, very rarely goes above 3 rounds of review. And each round takes about 3 months, and then 1 to 2 months after each revision for the authors to respond to the review. So it can take up to a year, sometimes slightly longer, for a paper from submission to acceptance. A consulting editor is someone that is appointed by the editor of the journal who would review anywhere from 3 to 5 journal articles a year that they deemed are worthy of peer review. And an associate editors are like mini editors of a specific article. So if a paper survives my desk rejection rate, and let's say a paper, you're one of the lucky papers that is part of that 30% that survived desk rejection, then what ends up happening is I would assign that paper to an associate editor who would be responsible for finding reviewers, typically 2 or more peer reviewers for that journal article. And they often will go to the consulting editors who will provide that review. And then once the reviews come in, which is going to be about a month after I assign it to them, then the associate editor would make an editorial decision on the article. And then after 2 or 3 rounds of this, then your paper will be accepted for publication. Another key difference between a consulting editor and an associate editor is that a consulting editor will not often get an honorarium or payment for their service, whereas an associate editor would be getting some sort of payment and honorarium for serving the journal. And the honorarium amount just varies very widely depending on the journal, the publisher, and the history of that journal.